Hi everyone, this is again another quick unit overview so that you can sort of see where we're headed. At this point, you should be proud of yourself. You've finished the first two units, you should have finished the midterm, so hopefully you're really getting into how the course works and hopefully being successful at it. The Unit 3 is going to look at the molecular biology of the gene. So in this unit, it's a 4-week unit. We're talking about DNA, talking about transcription and translation, which is how we get from DNA to proteins, gene regulation, which is really how we decide and turn on specific genes and specific cells at various times, right? So that not all of your DNA is on all the time. And then the last week, we're going to look at two concepts: mutation of your DNA and how that impacts organisms, and then some biomolecular techniques, which is really important in terms of moving forward in understanding the articles and things that you read. You need to know a little bit about the techniques that are done. So why are these topics together? Really what we're looking at here is kind of a big field called molecular genetics, although we're really looking at it at the intro level, because the questions we're asking here are how we get from DNA to proteins. And as you've seen throughout the semester so far, proteins determine a lot of functions. So really this section is looking at the basis of how living organisms function at the molecular level. How do we get from DNA to sort of those proteins that make up who we are? How do we regulate that? What happens when it goes wrong? Right, so we're looking at that entire process. The objectives for this unit, the first one is to understand how DNA copies itself. We're going to talk about the central dogma, which will make more sense as you go along, how the structure of nucleic acids dictates their function and how mutations impact that, how organisms control the expression of genetic information, which is basically, again, how we know when to turn genes on or off, describe the biomolecular techniques used in biology today, again, trying to get you a little more up to date on what's going on. And then we also want you to be able to analyze some microsatellite data to identify individuals. So this is going to be one of those case studies where you're looking at actually using the information that you've learned, and in this case, to solve crimes or to determine paternity. So the assignments for this module, it's 4 weeks of material. There are only 3 lab assignments. Not all of them have a lab. 4 module quizzes, 1 discussion board. The discussion board is your genes and your health, so make sure that you take a look at that one. Again, it's another fascinating way to look at how your genetics impact your overall health. So before moving on from this unit, complete the homework. Chapters are listed there. Complete the weekly quizzes, the labs, the lab questions, and then the discussion board. So hopefully, again, that just gives you a quick overview into Unit 3.